y'all, today we're making Copycat Spaghettios with meatballs. Okay, so we're gonna start with our meatballs. Go ahead and get your oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you're gonna need a pound of ground beef. I'm using the 85-15 because from what I hear, it works better for these meatballs, so that's what we're gonna do. So then I'm gonna add in a half a cup of plain breadcrumbs. Now we don't wanna overly season these meatballs. These are not your grandma's meatballs, okay? We wanna make these the copycat of what we get in the can. That's the whole point. So we're trying to make these as close as we can, so we're not gonna put too much of all the extra stuff that you would maybe put into a regular meatball. So now we're gonna add in 1/2 of a cup of some grated Parmesan cheese. Then I'm gonna add in 1 egg, and this is just gonna help bind everything together, you know, the breadcrumbs and the egg and all the things. So then we're gonna add in, because we don't want these to be dry, we're gonna add in 1/4 of a cup of milk. Any kind of milk will work. And then we're gonna add some seasonings. So I am gonna add in a teaspoon of onion powder. We're gonna add a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then I'm gonna add in just a half a teaspoon of salt and 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And that's all we're gonna add to our little meatballs today. And because we're doing this for the copycat, we need really small meatballs. Now this recipe is gonna make you roughly 50 meatballs. The recipe and everything will be down in the description box for y'all. But it'll make about 50 meatballs. You know, depending on how big you make them. If you make them on the bigger side, then they'll make less. If you make them smaller, they'll make more. So you're just going to want to, with a clean hand, work this meat, get everything mixed in, but you don't want to over mix it, because if you've ever had the canned Spaghettios with meatballs, the meatballs are really soft. So we don't want to overwork the meat and make our meatballs tough. Because again, copycat, we're trying to stick as closely as we can to what you get in the can. So you're going to want to make your meatballs about a half to maybe 3/4 of an inch. You don't want them to be too big, like I said. And if you're only doing a small batch of this, then you can cook these meatballs and then put them in the freezer. So you absolutely, if you're 1 or 2 people at your house and you know you won't eat this huge pan that you're going to see in a minute, then you can absolutely just, like I said, make your meatballs, cook them, and then freeze them, and then bring them out whenever you want them. So once you get them made, you're going to put them in the oven, 375 degrees, for about 10 to 12 minutes. And while they're cooking, I'm going to take these annellini, whatever they're called, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, and I'm going to cook that according to my package directions. If you don't have those, you can do any kind of small pasta, and it'll be just fine. So to my pot, I'm adding a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Then we're going to add in 2 cans of tomato sauce. Don't throw your cans away yet, because we're gonna need them in just a second. You'll see. And then I'm going to add in 1 can of tomato paste. So 2 15-ounce cans of tomato sauce, and then 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste. And then we're going to need to add some water to this. So that's why I said save your cans, because we're going to pour the water into the cans to get the rest of that sauce out of there, okay? So you're going to need 1.5 cups of water. Just, you know, plain old water out of your faucet. It'll be just fine. And then, like I said, I'm going to pour those into my cans and just rinse it around to get the rest of my sauce out of the cans. And if you accidentally throw your cans away, it's not a big deal. Just pour your water in there. Look, it's popping all over the stove, y'all, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. So you're going to mix that up until it's nice and smooth. You want to make sure that you get that tomato paste mixed in there really good. So just mix it. It doesn't take that long, as you can see. And then we are going to add a little bit of seasoning to our sauce. Now we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, because if you've ever had the canned version, the sauce is a little bit sweet. Now I normally don't like a sweet sauce, but for this, we got to do it. Then I added in a teaspoon of onion powder, teaspoon of garlic powder, We're going to add a half teaspoon of paprika, and then a teaspoon of salt, and about a fourth of a teaspoon of black pepper. And that's all the seasonings we're going to add to this. Like I said, it's a very simple sauce, and we want it to be a tiny bit on the sweet side just because the sauce in the can is sweet. So we're going to let that simmer until our meatballs are ready. And I forgot to turn the camera on, but what I did was pulled my meatballs out of the oven, and I'm just adding them into my pot. Now, if you're making this size that I'm doing, you're going to need all of these meatballs in the pot. It doesn't, I mean, you feel like it's way too many meatballs, but they're so small, it really isn't. So add your meatballs into your sauce. Now, mind you, we still have our pasta over there cooking, and then we're going to mix this up, and then we're going to put the lid back on this, and we're going to let this continue to just simmer on the stove until our pasta is ready. Okay, super easy, y'all. This is really easy. So once our pasta is cooked and drained, you're going to add it in here to your sauce. Well, I am. If you want to just put your pasta in your bowl and pour the sauce over the top, you definitely can. But because we're making a canned version, we're making the Copycat version, I wanted to put mine all together. So I cooked a whole pound of these, but I only ended up using a little over half for my liking. I liked that amount with enough sauce left over because we're going to let this simmer a little bit longer and it's going to thicken up a little bit. But if you want all the pasta in there, then you certainly can do that. But like I said, I ended up only using about probably 3/4 of the 16-ounce box of pasta. So then we're just going to put the lid back on here and let it simmer, I don't know, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of let everything, get together good. So once it's all done, all you're going to do is take it off the heat and serve it. And now you have homemade Spaghettios and meatballs. And y'all know I had some taste testers and they said this was delicious. And they ate on this for a week. It makes a huge pot. So this is definitely to feed a crowd. If you, you can make this and freeze it too, though, if you wanted to, like make individual portions and freeze it. But we just left it in the refrigerator and ate on it all week. But this is what they look like. So I hope that y'all are going to make your own homemade Spaghettios with meatballs. All right, that is all that I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.